In my previous life, I was the very picture of virtue and grace, a dutiful wife to my husband's family, a devoted mother to our children. For over 50 years, I held the household together alone. Throughout the capital, everyone praised me as Madame Percy, the model of virtue and benevolence. In my twilight years, my youngest grandson once climbed onto my lap and asked, "Grandmother, my wish is for you to live a long and healthy life." What is grandmother's wish? The innocent words of a child plucked at the taut strings of my heart. In the bronze mirror, I saw the white streaks at my temples. I reached out a withered hand to stroke his head, falling silent for a long while. When I finally passed away, dutiful sons and filial grandsons crowded around my bed, but among that sea of mourners, the one face I longed to see was absent. The man of pure heart and noble character, the Grand Chancellor Percy, forever devoted to the people. A single tear slid from the corner of my eye. If there is a next life, I prayed silently, may I never again set foot within the Percy family. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself staring at a carved canopy overhead. A strange mix of disbelief and relief welled within me. The familiar scent of the calming incense my mother once prepared lingered at the tip of my nose. Heaven must have taken pity on me, it had truly sent me back to my maiden days. In my past life, I was hopelessly enamored with Percy. Against my parents' counsel, I insisted on marrying him. From that day on, I took charge of the household affairs. Over the years, I outlived my spiteful mother-in-law, raised a son who topped the imperial examination, and married off my daughter into a ducal family with great honor. Percy lived up to everyone's expectations, rising to the esteemed position of Grand Chancellor. The people of the capital lauded his achievements, and countless families vied to offer their daughters to him. I, meanwhile, wept by the window day after day, tears no one saw, grief no one cared to hear. Dark stains spread upon my silk pillow as I brushed away my tears. Since heaven has granted me another chance, I will seize it with both hands. This time, I will never again throw myself into the fire pit, as the Percy family. My lady, you're awake. Allow me to help you with your toilet. The one who entered was Annie, my maid since childhood. I stared at her smooth, unblemished face, and touched by the cruel scar that would one day mar it. In my previous life, Annie had offended Percy's cousin with her beauty, and was ordered to have her face slashed before being cast into a brothel. My mother-in-law despised her for defending me time and again, and so shielded Sue, stalling me when I rushed to Annie's aid. By the time I arrived, my dear Annie lay trembling on a straw mat, her body bruised, her eyes hollow. When I grasped her hand, she seemed to sense me, forcing out a faint smile before she breathed her last. That sight haunted me for the rest of my days. I railed against the Percys for their cruelty, calling them a clan of heartless demons. But Percy merely replied, indifferent, "It's just a servant. Don't upset the household over such a trivial matter." In his eyes, human life was worth less than an ant's. My parents urged me to leave him, yet I clung to the illusion of love. Poor Annie. It was your mistress who failed you. In this life, I will protect you. When I didn't answer, Annie lifted the bed curtain, concern written all over her face. My lady, were you having a nightmare? You're covered in cold sweat. Her clear and eyes brought me abruptly back to the present. A shaft of morning light filtered through the window, striking the table. I shielded my eyes, unaccustomed to its warmth. Annie, what day is it today? My voice was hoarse. But Annie, absorbed in choosing a hairpin, didn't seem to notice. My lady, it's the 6th day of the 1st month. In the bronze mirror reflected a youthful girl's tender features, so different from the gray-haired matron I once became in the Percy household. How wonderful. It was the spring of the 32nd year of Yuan Shao. My aunt had not yet arranged a marriage for me, and my parents were still traveling the realm. The 6th there. I remembered now. It was on this very day in my past life that my aunt, the Empress, summoned me to the palace. Out of affection for me, she chose my husband. Knowing I adored Percy since childhood, she kept it from my parents and obtained the imperial decree herself. My parents were furious. They only watched my wedding from afar. Only now do I understand their pain. They had wished to marry me to Finn, the grandson of my father's old friend. But I had been consumed with thoughts of Percy, rejecting their wishes and poisoned by my mother-in-law's words, gradually estranged from them until we were strangers. Fate has a cruel sense of humor. Later, my eldest son's wife came from the very Finn family. The Finns were a proud martial clan, steeped in valor and discipline. When I first met the young woman, she did not flinch beneath my scrutiny. There was strength in her gaze that reminded me of someone I once knew. Among all the noble ladies, she was the one I chose for my son. As for Finn himself, I remembered little beyond my childhood impressions. My daughter-in-law once told me he was a man of unbending will, who spent his life guarding the borders until his many battle wounds claimed him early, before he ever married. Even as she spoke, admiration shone in her eyes. He must have been an extraordinary man. How pitiful that I learned it all too late. I toyed with the jade hairpin in my hand and let out a self-mocking laugh. Annie, prepare the carriage. We're going to the palace. Some things must be faced eventually. And the first step is to stay far away from Percy. As the carriage rolled along Suzaku Avenue, a sudden neigh shattered the calm. I lifted the curtain and saw a young man in black armor gallop past, one hand steady on the reins, the other shielding a frightened child in his arms. The silver spear in his grasp swept through the air, scattering pear blossoms in its wake. His brows, sharp as a blade, bore an uncanny resemblance to those of my daughter-in-law's family, the Finns. "My lady, that is young Master Finn," Annie whispered near my ear, afraid I might be startled. Perhaps my gaze lingered too long, for Finn turned his head. For a heartbeat, our eyes met. And the child's parents rushed forward, blocking my view. A flurry of pear petals drifted through the open curtain, settling inside the carriage. I picked up one and rubbed it gently between my fingers. It had been so many years since I last saw him. The imperial decree I once begged for had become the shackle that bound me for life. Thinking back now, Finn would have been a far better choice. As the image of the young man's retreating figure lingered in my mind, a thought began to take shape. A palace matron, sent by my aunt, was already waiting at the gates to lead the way. Inside the hall of fragrant phoenix, my aunt sat high upon her dais, her phoenix eyes clouded with worry. Life in the palace had been as perilous as walking on thin ice. Yet she never ceased to care for me. After arranging my marriage, my parents blamed her for indulging my whims, and a rift had grown between them. But the moment she saw me, the tension in her brow eased. "Serena," she said with a gentle smile. Come sit by your aunt." I quickened my steps and knelt at her knees. The scent of dragon saliva incense curled through the room, stinging my eyes until they watered. I looked at the new streaks of white in her temples. Memories of my aunt's fate in the previous life surged and beyond. After Percy entered government service, the person supporting him was not my cousin, but King, my cousin's sworn rival who had switched sides. King was cunning and deceitful. A man with a smiling face and a beastly heart. Utterly despicable. The late emperor despised fraternal strife. Yet King ignored all familial bonds. In the end, the two of them conspired to strip my cousin of his crown prince title, subjecting him to every imaginable humiliation. They sent numerous courtesans into his residence, watched over them, and if anyone resisted, they tortured my aunt. Enduring such filth, my cousin could bear no more and took his own life with a sword. My aunt soon followed, her spirit broken, joining him in death. At that time, I was pregnant. Yet no matter how I pleaded with Percy, it was useless. Through blurred tears, I caught a glimpse of satisfaction in his eyes. In the pouring rain, I lost the child, a female fetus nearly formed and could bear no more. I would have only one son in my lifetime. Percy had shattered my heart completely. Afterward, my bond with him was utterly severed. I abandoned the management of the household, handing over authority, and devoted myself to spiritual cultivation. Relieved of responsibility, I felt a lightness I had never known. Only after my mother-in-law passed did the household authority return to me. "Serena, why are you so quiet today? Still worried about your marriage?" My aunt dismissed the others and spoke softly. "Don't worry. Before your parents return from the south, I will petition His Majesty on your behalf." I lifted my eyes and cut her off. The jade earrings glinted coldly. "Aunt, I no longer wished to marry Percy. I forced my trembling voice into calmness. But my tightly clenched fists betrayed me. Her gaze froze. A flicker of surprise crossing her eyes. Of course anyone would be startled. The entire capital knew I had clung to Percy's eldest son like a stubborn adhesive. My aunt knew better than anyone of my devotion to Chazih. Now, to suddenly reject him, she would surely think I was merely throwing a childish tantrum. As expected, she asked again, "Did that boy from the Percy family mistreat you?" I shook my head, rising to take her arm, unwilling to discuss him any further. Aunt. Serena was naive back then. Now I see the value of a rare and devoted heart. Percy was never truly my match. She slammed her teacup on the table, sending tea splashing onto my skirt. She studied me for a long moment, as if weighing the truth of my words. Realizing I was no longer acting out, she sighed, gently smoothing my hair into a bun. Very well. Very well. I am old and cannot fathom your heart. Yet, in her eyes, a trace of subtle joy lingered. She did not linger to converse further. Summoning her attendant, "Mother shall escort me to rest. My head aches terribly." She massaged her temples, truly in great pain. Inside the Jiaofeng Palace inner chambers. "Your Highness. Miss has already left." Queenie stood by the window, recalling the instructions given by my brother-in-law and sister-in-law before they went south. "The Percy family is a den of vipers. Serena has grown up under your Highness's care. Do you wish her to fall into such a mire?" This marriage had long been a thorn in her side. Now that Serena had come to her senses, she only hoped that in the future, her judgment of others would be sound. I was just about to leave the palace when I ran into the one person I least wanted to see. My cousin, the Crown Prince, and Percy were strolling together, seemingly engrossed in an animated conversation. How close they appeared. Even now, I could not understand why Percy had been so cruel to my cousin in the past. Could it be simply because he was forced to marry me? Percy, clad in a flawless moon-white robe, noticed me first. When he saw me approaching from the Jiaofeng Hall, the look of disgust in his eyes vanished in an instant. Surely he assumed I had come to my aunt to petition for the imperial edict for our marriage. I could not help but smirk. How foolish I had been in the last life, believing that as young spouses, there would remain some sentiment between us. Percy was merely incapable of expressing love. My eyes flicked to the jade pendant at his waist. In my previous life, he had always said it was an heirloom, but I had overheard him drunkenly confess that it belonged to the one he truly loved. Cousin, I said, bowing low. He smiled and teased. "Serena, are you too excited? Didn't you notice who stands beside your cousin?" I did not spare Percy a glance. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw his expression stiffen, an unnatural shadow crossing his face. "Percy, compared to the cold indifference you showed me in the last life, this is nothing. The real performance is yet to come. Cousin, I shall come to the palace another day to reminisce. Today, I have urgent matters," I said, turning to leave without waiting for their reactions. Even though Percy was talented, without the support of my Serena family in the last life, he could never have achieved what he did. Even my cousin, the Crown Prince, became friendly with him because of me. And in the end, they all met tragic fates. A sharp resolve flared and vanished as quickly. Percy, this life, without the support of my Serena family, let's see where you'll end up. I will make the Percy family pay. By now, Percy must have passed the imperial examination with top honors. Starting from the exams might be too late. But that doesn't matter, I have plenty of ways to keep him trapped forever in the Percy family's dilapidated hut. In 2 days, Gina would publicly host the flower viewing banquet, though in truth it was to help kings select a bride. Percy's cousin would also be invited. Evil beings gathered together, this would be the perfect opportunity. I dipped a silk handkerchief into the flower juice, drawing designs. The day after tomorrow, I'll add some color to Gina's flower banquet. In the imperial gardens at late spring, scattered petals fell upon the blue stone path. My aunt feigned illness and did not come a blessing, for she should not witness such sordid affairs. Suddenly, a commotion arose along the winding corridor. Amidst the clinking of jewels and precious ornaments, a girl appeared, supported like the moon by stars. Wearing a butterfly-patterned robe of green cloud brocade, her smile was radiant, her demeanor gentle and refined. But beneath that mask lay a heart of venom and malice, deserving 1,000 deaths. I dubbed my fingernails into my palm hidden in my wide sleeve and whispered a few words into Annie's ear. Watching her walk away, I stepped forward. We paused not far from them. I casually asked the maid beside me, "Is the one in the center Percy's illegitimate cousin?" The voice was soft, but loud enough for people to catch. "Half-sister?" A murmur rippled through the noble ladies present, their faces twisted with surprise and curiosity. "Sue is illegitimate? Why have we never noticed before?" I smoothed my hair with a faint, deliberate gesture. "A daughter born of a concubine. Illegitimate through and through. No matter how poised and proper she appeared while at my side, she could never escape her status." Sue noticed me, too. I glimpsed her teeth clenched so tightly they might shatter. Yet she restrained herself, bound by the etiquette of the occasion. A flicker of satisfaction stirred in me, though it was far from enough. Locking eyes with her for a moment, I gave a deliberately provocative glance before turning to walk away. Sure enough, out of the corner of my eye, I saw Sue stomp her foot and follow. I shot a knowing look at a palace maid bearing a tray. Moments later, Sue's sharp cry rang out from behind. "Ah, my dress! You wretched maid! How do you even walk properly?" In a moment of panic, Sue could no longer maintain appearances, letting her frustration spill. Realizing the dress was soaked, her anger and anxiety had to wait. She would first have to change. Soon, let out a low sigh. Another maid caught up to her. "Sue, come with me." Sue cast me a venomous glare. Clearly, she hadn't expected me to publicly expose her. Heedless of Percy's reputation. "Go ahead, let her be fussed over thoroughly." I had already instructed Annie to lure Percy to a secluded hall under the guise of something personal to him. Given Percy's indulgence toward her, he would surely take the bait. "In my past life, you humiliated my cousin through servants and eunuchs. In this life, you would pay the price, scheming against your cousin like a wild, rebellious bear." Across the courtyard, the birds scattered from the eaves, flapping and squawking. The Percy family's days of ease were drawing to an end. "Pay respects to Her Highness the noble consort." The chorus of greetings echoed repeatedly. I gathered my skirts and settled into a corner. Yet she spotted me instantly. Her smile was all pretense. "Serena, how gracious of you to honor me with your presence." I lowered my gaze to hide the cold smile threatening to surface. Fingers brushing against the jade bracelet on my wrist, my mind elsewhere. "Your Highness." A sudden commotion erupted in the corridor. A palace maid fell to her knees at the steps. She tried to whisper to Gina, but Gina, impatient, barely listened. "You foolish servant. What has you so flustered? Speak quickly." The maid's face was pale with near tears, but she stammered on. "Your Highness. Ahead. Ahead." Her words faltered. Gina sprang to her feet. "What's ahead?" She had intended to send a matron to investigate, but the maid's ashen complexion and Gina's own impatience left her no choice. She strode forward, with the crowd following in confusion. At a particular chamber, an unbearable noise spelled out, "How dare you sully my domain with such vile acts? Break the doors open." I followed the spectators, eager for the spectacle. When the doors were forced open, the interior revealed chaos, silk and draped swaying, the floor a mess. And when I saw who was entangled inside, even I was shocked. It was Percy and King. Gina's curses caught in her throat. Though stunned, I acted swiftly, moving ahead with tears brimming, forcing just a few drops to escape. "Percy. How could you do this to me? After all my devotion to you. And yet, you prefer men." I emphasized the words deliberately. Then I turned to King. "Your Highness. Why must I be made to suffer when you already had designs on Percy? Was this necessary?" "I am open-minded, your ladyship. My preference for men is no novelty." I had once doubted the rumors of King's proclivities, but recalling the way he looked at Percy in my past life, and their mutual scheming, everything became clear. By now, Gina had ordered the scene sealed off, trying to silence gossip, but it was futile. Many noble daughters had come simply for the spectacle. And no one feared Gina. I glanced at the burned incense nearby. Ordinary in appearance. Yet this was the very incense I had sourced from Chloe. Intended as a gift for Percy and Sue. Now King had used it. But that was no great loss. I watched Percy's humiliation with a measure of grim satisfaction. His face was a portrait of shame. His garments torn. Complexion streaked with stains like marred parchment. He seemed dazed. Still not fully recovered from the effects of the incense. A man so concerned with reputation. After this ordeal. Would likely return home seeking death. King fared no better. Coming to his senses. He dropped to his knees before Gina. Begging for mercy. Mother. Mother. I was momentarily lost. Please help me. Help me. The emperor himself had to intervene in this scandal. King was seized. And with it, his claim to the throne evaporated. The only regret was that Percy didn't even require my hand in this matter. Gina had 100 ways to ensure he suffered. Truly a waste. Palace lanterns flickered to life as I walked through the corridor. The embroidered hems of my gown crushing fallen blossoms beneath my silk shoes. Sue had vanished mysteriously. And Annie was nowhere to be seen. The vast palace seemed empty. Save for a breeze carrying faint fragrances. At a waterside pavilion. I finally found Annie. Beside her stood a tall, slender man. I called to Annie. And the man turned as well. It was Finn. Seeing me. His usually smiling, peach blossom eyes now held the chill of frost. Annie, heading to solve my obsession. Sensing the moment. Quietly stepped away. I had assumed Finn would disapprove of my boldness. Judging me cruel. Yet he spoke suddenly. Leave such matters to me. There is no need for you to soil your hands. Reborn. This counted as our second meeting in this life. I paused. Asking only, why are you helping me? He didn't answer me. Only gazed at the ripples spreading across the pool. Sue has been knocked out and left in the side hall. He said, how you deal with her is up to you. I nodded, knowing I couldn't let her off. Soon, head out alone sigh. Someone would carve her face and send her to a brothel. 2 outsiders. It would seem she had simply vanished. Percy's second uncle had no shortage of daughters. He wouldn't expend effort searching for Sue. As I looked at that familiar face, memory surfaced of the frail boy who used to hide behind Mackay, secretly watching me. Now, he had grown into a young general, commanding troops that made enemies tremble. Mackay was Finn's elder brother. And in childhood he had been especially close to us. Since his betrayal and death in the Southern Barbarian campaign, I had not seen Finn again. At that thought, my gaze toward him sharpened. We tacitly avoided mentioning painful memories. Serena, you're not alone. I will stand with you. And together we will make all who have harmed you pay. Finn said suddenly. I turned to look at him. Everything was unfolding too smoothly. As if fate itself were aiding me. He realized his words were abrupt, lowering his gaze to hide his expression. Watching his retreating figure, a thought gradually took root in my heart. Today, the second young master of the Chancellor's residence was holding a horse race. As far as I knew, he was friendly with Finn and would surely be invited. To verify my suspicion, I obtained an invitation from Chloe. Leaving the Princess Dowager's residence, I unexpectedly ran into Finn. Fearing the carriage would draw attention, I dismounted halfway, but he had vanished. Turning a corner, I found the boy leaning against the wall, arms crossed. Gone was the decorum of that day. He had reverted to his usual reckless, untamed self. This version of him was the Finn I knew. A blade of grass rested between his fingers. A mischievous smile tugging at his lips. Serena? Following me? Perhaps my nerve was thick, for I felt no embarrassment at being caught. I cleared my throat and stood before him, meeting his scrutinizing gaze. Oh Finn, hadn't felt wan sigh. What a coincidence. I said, feigning surprise. I had no intention of following you. I merely saw you heading in the same direction. So perhaps our paths align. You're probably on your way to the sec and young master's invitation as well, Finn said, his brow slightly raised, a faint smile playing in his eyes. I felt uneasy under his prolonged gaze. My lie was clumsy. I had no connection with Mariano, the second young master. who had always looked down on Percy's airs of superiority. And by extension, I disliked him too. Fabricating an invitation to his race was absurd, and walking to the racetrack on foot would take forever. As I pondered my next move, I spotted Annie following behind in a carriage. Relief washed over me. I pulled out the invitation I had prepared from my sleeve thankfully. Chloe had given it to me. Finn's gaze left me, and he said, "In that case, Serena, you may go first. I have some matters to attend to," I replied. With that, he politely gestured for me to proceed. I lifted my handkerchief to mask the awkwardness on my face. In my rush, I almost misread him. He had simply intended to attend to business. "Serena, your horsemanship has impressed me," he said, his voice as clear and crisp as a mountain stream. Yet he held the reins tightly. I tilted my head and saw Finn's profile outlined by the sunlight, a faint scar along his brow ending him a sharper, more commanding presence. He rode beside me, his black cloak fluttering in the wind. I leaned forward to dodge a stray branch, feeling a swell of emotion at his words. In my past life, I had learned horsemanship solely to please Percy. Now, it had become the key to breaking the deadlock. Next to Finn, I am but a novice showing off in front of a master, I thought. I had the persistent feeling that the one aiding me from behind was Finn. He smiled without speaking, tilting his head to avoid my probing gaze. Looking around, I saw that Mariano had invited very few guests to this polo match. Rather than a competition, it was merely a small gathering of friends. Finn and I arrived early, and I had returned to my tent midway to change my attire. Stepping out, I saw figures charging across the field with abandon. The wind and dust tossed the young man's battle cloak. He looked like a free eagle soaring beyond the frontier. The horse's gear glinted like scattered gold under the sun. As I moved forward, a sweet, familiar voice reached me. "Second brother. This horse race is delightful." I looked in the direction of the voice, and saw Mariano leading a girl in pale yellow approaching. I knew her all too well. In Percy's study hung countless portraits of her, capturing every mood and expression. I watched her intently, until she spoke again, addressing Finn on horseback. "Brother Finn, I'm here." She lifted her skirts and ran toward him, waving excitedly. Finn, cousin Fosso Maevsai, however, looked past her inferiorly. His gaze even tinged with coldness. Noticing the subtle dynamic between them, surprise flashed across my eyes. Somia's affection was for Finn I had never known. In the last life, she had married the crown prince as a concubine. With no further interaction afterward, Finn's eyes showed no hint of feeling. He seemed almost to fear her approach. Perhaps fearing Finn would flee, Mia positioned herself in front of his horse. "Brother Finn, you're dodging me again, let's see how you run this time." Her pale yellow riding outfit highlighted her youthful beauty. Rarely had I seen her so lively. In memory, heading Hofdobrand session, she had always sat with downcast eyes in a corner, enduring slander from the palace's concubines, devoted to proving her innocence through solitary austerity. If all of this was because of Finn, it now made sense. Mariano cleared his throat, signaling her to compose herself. Only then did he notice me standing nearby. Mouth agape, he pointed and exclaimed, sputtering, this. Serena. I'm not mistaken. Am I?" Rubbing his eyes as he spoke, he revealed that he had been caught. I stepped deliberately out from the shadow of my own tent. "Mariano. Long time no see." "Annie, honey, ever timely," waved the gilded notice in her hand toward him. It had been meant for Chloe. And now, seeing it, Mariano could hardly misunderstand the message. His expression slackened, and he no longer mocked me. Unexpectedly, that unreliable Chloe had proved useful at a critical moment. Meanwhile, Mia, ignoring all eyes upon her, suddenly flicked an object into Finn's arms. "Here. This is a gift I specially prepared for you. It was meant for your birthday the other day, but some little thief somehow got to it, forcing me to remake it. Once I catch that rascal, he'll regret it." Even now, her voice chirped incessantly like a soft canary. I couldn't help but press a hand to my lips and stifle a laugh. Percy had stooped to such petty trickery. And the jade pendant had been stolen from someone else, no wonder he had treasured it so deeply. His devotion was truly unwavering. The Percy family had always produced great romantics. His father had a band and his position as family head to run off with an actress, leaving the title to his second uncle. In those days, Percy had favored a concubine and eliminated the legitimate wife, forcing the illegitimate sec and master under the name of the legitimate mother. Percy's mother excelled at finding fault during morning and evening inspections, making illegitimate children kneel on cold stone slabs to copy family rules even in the dead of winter. Yet fate had turned. When Fionan came to power, his first act was to drive Percy and his mother into a leaky hut. Perhaps it was destiny, just as Percy and his mother began to rise from the grass-thatched dwelling. They were forced back. Still, to ensure the Percy family never fully recovered, more effort would be needed. And we'll administer a stronger dose. I'll be the sharpest blade in your hand. Finn had silently come up behind me, his voice low and resolute. After a moment, I voiced the question lingering in my mind. You've come back too? He said nothing, but his expression answered me affirmatively. When the first snow of Yuan Shao's 33rd year fell, the Percy family fell completely. The High Court searched their estate for evidence of treason and collusion with enemies, uncovering numerous additional crimes of corruption and embezzlement. It was a testament to his second uncle's skill that he had held the family headship for so long. Finn and I had put considerable effort into him. The scrape of iron chains dragged across the floor, gradually muffled by the falling snow. Percy crouched in the dampest corner of the cell, his thin prison garb barely covering his protruding shoulder bones. He struggled with two filthy fellow prisoners over a half-moldy bun. When he noticed me, he didn't pause, hastily stuffing the bun into his mouth before finally raising his head. I waved my hands in front of his eyes. His right eye was clouded with grime, but his left blazed with terrifying fury. What are you doing here? Come to mock me? Vile woman! You conspire against the loyal. Because I refuse you, you take such vicious revenge. He lunged toward me. Unsteady. Careful. Miss. A guard's sword cut the air before me, the scent of rust and blood thick. Percy was yanked to the floor by his chains, emitting a desperate, beast-like whine. You are truly absurd, I said, memories of my past life interweaving with the scene. I laughed, genuinely, until tears blurred my vision. All that you suffer today is what you deserve. Ignoring his hysterical thrashing, I walked toward another cell and paused. Percy's mother, spotting me, lit up with hope, her blood-stained fingers clutching the bars as she pounded them. Serena. Serena. Seeing my indifference, she persisted. Serena. You adore Percy, do you not? If you petition the Crown Prince. Tomorrow, no. Immediately. He will marry you. I snorted, amused. At this point, she still invoked Percy's name. I handed a few gold ingots to the guards, instructing them to take proper care of my former life, good mother-in-law and husband. Then I turned and left, ignoring the screams and curses that followed behind me. Outside the prison stood the Finn family carriage. Finn waited on the stone steps, his dark red brocade robes accentuating his striking features. He removed his cloak and draped it over me. The South City Guiyuan Pavilion has recently received the clouds of Mount Lu. Shall we invite a fair lady to enjoy them together? I held out my hand, catching a falling snowflake. As it melted in my palm, I felt everything settle. I smiled faintly, glancing at him. Then I shall consider it. The slanting afternoon sunlight streamed into the Chenxiong Pavilion. Chloe leaned against the desk, engrossed in a storybook. Having resolved the lingering problem of the Percy family, my mood had lightened considerably. Chloe, having fulfilled my obsession. Are you really going to keep fiddling with these bottles forever? I asked, casually picking up a jar from the table and inhaling its scent. Her tone was even, and she cast a fleeting glance my way. Be careful, it's poisonous. The warning sent me tossing the bottle aside immediately, and I jumped up to wash my hands. A sly smile lingered at the corner of her eyes. I realized then. Ha, you actually tricked me, I said, feigning anger, and made to strike her. She sidestepped effortlessly. You really underestimate me, she said. My ambitions aren't in these little bottles anyway. I cut in ahead of her. I know. She replied calmly. Chloe's grand plan is to open 30 jade shops in Longxi, 50 weapons workshops in Yuzhou, hire a few managers to run them, and travel the world in her carriage. Am I right, my lady Chloe? I teased. Chloe, long accustomed to my antics, shook her head with a mixture of resignation and amusement. Unbothered. When I have children and grandchildren around me, you'll still be alone. Truly, honey facile. No regrets? I asked earnestly. Amid the ticking of the bronze water clock, she slowly filled the incense burner with freshly made incense. Blue smoke curled upward, blurring her delicate features. The oriole in the golden cage may sing beautifully, but it will never match the freedom of a swallow beneath the eaves. This world does not allow women to spread their wings. So I must carve out a little space for myself, in both my past life and this one. The person I admired most had always been Chloe. Yet in this era, achieving such freedom was far from easy. Even she had endured countless obstacles to reach this point, the bitterness of which only she could truly know. No matter what path you choose, I will always support you, I said softly. I knew that one day, these hands that handled incense and medicine would tear away the heavy veils society draped over women. In the 35th spring of Yuan Shao, the crown prince, my cousin, ascended the throne. When my parents returned from the south and learned of the Percy family's affairs, they looked at me with the quiet satisfaction of one who sees timely awakening. Serena, your father thinks the Finn family boy is quite commendable, my mother said. I have traveled far and wide with your mother, and often hear the people praise him, my father added. Watching the two of them harmonize so naturally, I couldn't help but smile. At that moment, a servant came to report that Finn had arrived again. Seeing the young man in the corridor, radiant with vitality and poise, I felt as if everything had finally fallen perfectly into place. The end. When Estelle received the pregnancy test report, the first thing she did was dial a number she knew by heart. Crew, I would like to entrust you with handling a divorce lawsuit. The phone screen dimmed, reflecting her pale and listless face. Estelle rose and walked to the window, gazing at the meticulously tended roses in the garden and below all planted by Lucius himself, simply because another woman loved them. Even though the two women looked alike, she would never be the one he truly wanted. Estelle gently stroked her abdomen and gave a bitter smile. It was time to leave. 3 years of marriage had been like a dream. She could still hear the maid's whispers in her ears. Sir is so attentive to that Vivian. The mistress clearly loves Jasmine. But he planted roses everywhere. Exactly. I heard Vivian is sick. And Sir flew abroad overnight to take care of her, abandoning his own home. Our mistress is pitiful. She guards such a big house but can't keep Sir's heart. Estelle was long accustomed to these looks of pity or sympathy. To her, they didn't matter. She had married Lucius not for love, but for a face she buried deep in her heart and never revealed. A face almost identical to someone else's. Lucius and Orion were twin brothers, but their fates were vastly different. She and Orion had been childhood sweethearts, promising to get engaged after college graduation. But a tragic car accident took Orion away, shattering all her happiness, draining the world of color, and leaving her alone to struggle in memories. Sleeping pills, alcohol, and enclosed spaces numbed her pain and despair, barely allowing her to survive. Until she met Lucius. That familiar face made her think, for a moment, that heaven had shown mercy and given her a reason to hold on. She knew she could never love anyone again. Her only obsession was to leave a bloodline belonging to Orion. So she orchestrated a meeting, cautiously approaching Lucius step by step. At the time, Lucius was upset over the departure of his beloved Vivian and facing family pressure to marry. He didn't reject Estelle, who came to him willingly, but coldly set a condition: they could marry. But love would never be part of the deal. She agreed without hesitation, even grateful for his honesty. Lucius thought she was desperately in love with him, and he disdained her but was glad to have a shield. On their wedding day, Vivian called from abroad saying she was unacclimated to the climate. Lucius immediately abandoned her and the guests to fly overseas. After marriage, he doubled down on projecting his longing and guilt for Vivian onto Estelle. He frequently traveled abroad to visit Vivian, yet tasked Estelle with arranging his flight itineraries. He decorated their wedding room in Vivian's favorite style, filled the study with her paintings, and even required Estelle to mimic her eating habits. Estelle became the biggest joke in their social circle, a humble substitute. She silently endured everything, playing the role of a docile wife. Her only insistence was seizing every opportunity when he briefly came home to fulfill her duties as a wife. Lucius didn't resist, assuming she was hopelessly infatuated with him, just as he was with Vivian, whom he could never have. Estelle never explained her motives, for it was meaningless. Now, she was finally pregnant. Her goal had been achieved, and this absurd marriage should end. The next morning, Lucius unexpectedly appeared at the villa. He looked travel-worn, a trace of exhaustion in his brows. The first thing he said upon seeing Estelle was, "Can you make souffle?" Estelle was taken aback. Before she could reply, he continued, "Vivian suddenly wants some. Make a portion and come with me to the hospital later." She looked up, a words to refuse lingering on her tongue. But her gaze fell on the cufflink on his wrist. It was a gift she had given Orion for his 18th birthday. Later somehow ending up with Lucius. She changed her mind. I'll try my best to make it perfect. But can you give me this cufflink?" Lucius raised an eyebrow, seemingly accustomed to her requests. He unhesitatingly removed the cufflink and tossed it onto the table before her. "Take it." This kind of equivalent exchange was nothing new. He often asked her to do things for Vivian, waiting in line for hours for limited edition desserts she loved, selecting gifts for her, or even imitating Vivian's handwriting to write blessing cards. Each time, Estelle agreed and asked for something in return, sometimes a pen he often used, a book, or a cufflink. These items were not valuable, but they were things he carried with him, infused with his presence. Watching her carefully place the cufflink into an exquisite small box, Lucius asked with a complex expression, "Do you love me so much that you treat my old things as treasures?" Estelle paused, knowing he had misunderstood again. Every item she had asked for over the years had once belonged to Orion. After Orion's death, most of his belongings were collected by the Lucian family, but a few were kept by Lucius as mementos. She collected them only to cherish memories of Orion, finding solace in objects associated with him. She didn't explain, merely curving her lips into her usual docile smile. For some reason, seeing the seemingly overflowing love in her eyes, Lucius felt a flicker of unease. His mind flashed back to her nearly humble devotion over the past 3 years, and he felt a moment of daze. But he quickly shook off the discomfort, reverting to his usual coldness, and urged, "Go make it now. Vivian is waiting." Estelle busied herself in the kitchen, carefully preparing the souffle. Later, they drove to the hospital. The car was silent until Lucius seemed to remember something and broke the silence. "You called me yesterday. What was it about?" Estelle gazed at the passing street scenery outside the window, her tone calm. "It wasn't important. I've handled it." He grunted, then said, "Vivian hasn't fully recovered. I'll stay with her at the hospital during this time. Don't contact me unless it's urgent." Estelle remained submissive, nodding without a trace of grievance or dissatisfaction on her face. Looking at her, Lucius felt that strange unease again. For 3 years, she had never complained, no matter how excessive his demands. Could anyone truly love someone so much as to watch them dote on another woman? In the hospital's VIP ward, Vivian feigned surprise at the sight of Estelle. "Estelle? Lucius, why did you bring her here?" "I just casually mentioned wanting souffle." Estelle placed the thermal box on the bedside table and took out an elegant porcelain bowl, saying softly, "Lucius always remembers every casual word from you." Vivian, hearing her defend him. Lucius frowned, the discomfort in his heart returning. He stood up and stiffly took the box from her hands. "I'll take it from here. You can go back now." Estelle didn't argue. Picking up her bag, she turned and left. As she gently closed the door, she heard Lucius's tender voice, "Vivian, try it. I know you don't like overly sweet things. So I asked her to use less sugar." Oh, and the art book you wanted to see yesterday, I brought it for you." Vivian's voice was filled with delight. Wow. This book is a global limited edition. I heard it's hard to get." "You're so kind, Lucius." Estelle closed the door firmly, her steps unhesitating as she walked straight out of the hospital. In the days that followed, Lucius stayed true to his word, barely leaving Vivian's side. Company documents were delivered to the ward by his assistant. When Vivian craved a certain exotic fruit, he immediately had it airlifted by private plane, washing and peeling it himself before feeding it to her. To coax her into drinking a bowl of tonic soup, he promised to give her the latest jewelry. These stories became headlines in social circles and financial news, with everyone sighing over President Lucian's infatuation. When Estelle saw them, she simply swiped past the screen, indifferent. On her alma mater's centennial anniversary, Estelle was invited to attend as a representative of outstanding alumni. After signing in at the registration desk, she looked up and saw two familiar figures not far away: Lucius and Vivian. They had clearly seen her too, leaving her no choice but to walk over. Vivian smiled first and greeted her. "Estelle. What a coincidence. You graduated from our school too?" Estelle nodded. Lucius frowned and asked, "Which year did you graduate?" She replied softly, "Class of 2021. This time, Vivian looked astonished. "Then you were in the same year as Lucius's brother?" She seemed to recall something. "Estelle. Did you know Lucius's brother Orion? I heard Senior Orion had a girlfriend he loved deeply, almost ready to bring her home to meet his parents. But Ben." Mid-sentence, she realized she had crossed a line and stopped abruptly, hurriedly glancing at Lucius. "I'm sorry, Lucius. I didn't mean to bring up Orion." Orion's death was a permanent pain in the Lucian family and Estelle's heart, a forbidden topic. Estelle's body trembled imperceptibly, her hand hidden in her sleeve tightening into a fist, her nails almost piercing her skin. Her chest felt as if crushed by a boulder, making it hard to breathe. Lucius's face also dark and instantly, but he couldn't bear to scold Vivian. He simply said in a low voice, "It's getting late. Let's go to the restaurant." The three went to the reserved dining room together. Almost all the dishes ordered were to Vivian's taste. During the meal, Lucius was meticulously attentive, peeling shrimp shells, removing fish bones, and cutting steak into small pieces for her. During the meal, Estelle went to the restroom to touch up her makeup, only to hear Vivian's voice on the phone from a stall. She had no intention of eavesdropping, and was about to cough to signal her presence when she clearly heard Lucius's name. "Don't worry. I know exactly how to manipulate him. If I don't act distant, how will he keep thinking about me and feeling guilty? His wife? She's just a decoration. Everyone in our circle knows how Lucius treats her. I have my own plans. I've played this game of pushing and pulling many times. As long as I pretend not to notice his deep feelings, we can keep this ambiguity going, making him fall deeper until he feels too indebted to leave me. Men always value what they can't have, you know? So that's how it is." Estelle sneered inwardly. The first love Lucius held dear was not as innocent as she seemed. The restroom door opened, and Vivian walked out, seeing Estelle standing at the sink adjusting her appearance. Her face paled. She bit her lip and asked stiffly, "When did you get here? How much did you hear?" Estelle remained silent. Vivian grew anxious. "Don't go spreading rumors to Lucius. He won't believe you." Watching her expression twist instantly, Estelle felt nothing but boredom. She didn't love Lucius, so she had no interest in prying into their relationship. Drying her hands without a word, she turned to leave, but Vivian suddenly grabbed her arm. "Let go." Estelle hated being touched most and instinctively struggled. At that moment, Vivian staggered as if losing her footing, let out a cry, and slammed backward into the bathroom wall before sliding to the floor. The commotion immediately drew Lucius from outside. He rushed in to see Vivian lying on the ground with a reddened forehead and tearful eyes, while Estelle stood nearby, expression cold. He instantly knelt to cradle Vivian in his arms, then looked up at Estelle with sharp, knife-like eyes. "Did you push her?" Before Estelle could explain, Vivian sobbed in his arms. Lucius, petting Farfeldly, "My head is so dizzy. I'm sorry. It's all my fault. Estelle. She seems to hate me so much." Seeing Vivian wronged, Lucius felt intense pain. He scooped her up and headed for the door. He never should have left Vivian alone with Estelle. Of course Estelle, who loved him so deeply, wouldn't stay passive seeing Vivian near him. Estelle tried to follow and explain. But he shoved her roughly. Get out of my sight. She stumbled backward, her foot hitting a stair leading to the dining terrace. Unable to steady herself, she missed the step and rolled uncontrollably down the stairs. The world spun as every bone in her body ached as if shattered. Struggling to sit up, she braced herself on the ground and felt warm, sticky liquid. Looking down, bright blood was spurting beneath her. The baby. Her baby. Overwhelming panic seized her. She reached toward the man above, voice trembling with sobs. Lucius, Lucius. Save me. Take me to the hospital. My child. The man on the stairs looked down at her coldly. This is the lesson you deserve for touching Vivian. With that, he carried Vivian and walked away without a backward glance. Watching his heartless back disappear, Estelle felt her heart torn apart. She could endure any injury to herself, but her child was her only hope. Nothing could happen to them. Oh Ryan, if you still love me, please don't let me lose this baby. The blood beneath her flowed thicker, the dazzling red nearly making her faint. Drowned in despair, Estelle used her last strength to fumble for her phone and dial emergency services. It was her final hope. After reporting the address, her vision went black, and she lost consciousness. When she opened her eyes again, she was in a hospital ward. Her wounds were dressed, and a doctor was examining her. Seeing her awake, the doctor sighed in relief but chided. You pregnant women must be more careful. Falling from such a high staircase. Luckily, the baby is safe. Notify your husband to complete the formalities. Estelle stared blankly at the white ceiling, her voice a whisper. I have no husband. My love is already dead. Just then, let out a low sigh. The door slammed open. Lucius stood at the threshold, face gloomy, staring at her with complex eyes. Who did you say is dead? Misinterpreting the tension as a lover's quarrel, the doctor hurried to mediate. Lucien, Eddings filled my obsession. Your wife just woke up. She's emotionally unstable. And her abdomen. Dive. Leo. Estelle sat up abruptly, interrupting calmly. Didn't you say you needed to arrange my follow-up tests? The doctor hesitated, glancing at Lucius' gloomy face and Estelle's pale but resolute expression. He nodded and left without another word. Alone in the room, the atmosphere froze. Lucius' gaze was as sharp as a falcon's, fixed on her. What did the doctor mean by abdomen? And who is dead? Estelle avoided his eyes, making up an excuse. Nothing. He said I have abrasions on my stomach. I must have been delirious from the fall earlier. His expression remained icy. If you hadn't provoked Vivian, you wouldn't have fallen. This is your fault. Now, apologize to Vivian immediately. For the first time, Estelle's eyes lacked their usual meekness. Only hollow calm. I did nothing wrong. Why should I apologize? There are surveillance cameras in the dining corridor. Check them yourself. Lucius' face darkened further. I don't need surveillance. I believe what I saw and what Vivian said. You will apologize. Exhausted from the trauma, Estelle only wanted to protect her baby, adjust her body, and leave as soon as possible. Arguing over the truth was pointless. Closing her eyes, she sighed resignedly. If I apologize, will you drop this? Something in Lucius shifted at her weary compromise, though the feeling vanished quickly. He nodded stiffly. Estelle said nothing more. Propping her weak body, she walked to the adjacent ward where Vivian lay enjoying an apple Lucius had just peeled. Seeing Estelle enter, Vivian's eyes flashed triumph before she resumed her frail, innocent look. Standing by the bed, Estelle stated calmly, sorry. Without waiting for a reaction, she turned to Lucius at the door. Satisfied? Before he could answer, she walked back to her ward, leaving Lucius standing there, face even darker. What was Estelle's problem? During her hospital stay, heading fulfilled say. Estelle often overheard nurses gossiping about how attentively Lucius cared for Vivian. Though Vivian only had a minor forehead injury, he'd hired the city's top specialists for her. When she craved pastries from an old shop across town, he drove hours to buy them. When she feared the dark at night, he stayed vigil outside her ward. Estelle ignored it all, focusing on eating, taking medicine, and nurturing the faint but tenacious life in her womb. On her discharge day, after her final exam, The doctor smiled and assured her the baby was healthy. Gently touching her belly, she hesitated before asking the question weighing on her. Doctor, if twin brothers have children, would their kids look alike? The strange question puzzled the doctor briefly before he replied. If the paternal genetic traits are dominant, it's possible for children to resemble paternal relatives. Even uncles. Relieved, she thanked him and left with her discharge papers. Unexpectedly, at the hospital lobby, she ran into Vivian and Lucius also leaving. Vivian greeted her cheerfully. Still playing the innocent, Estelle. What a coincidence. I was too sensitive about the restaurant incident, let's forget it and be friends again. To celebrate my recovery, Lucius is hosting a party at Cloud Top Club tonight. Join us. Without waiting for agreement, she linked arms with Estelle and half pushed her into Lucius' car. The vehicle headed for the city's most exclusive private club. In the VIP room, many of their social circle had gathered. The party became a showcase of Lucius and Vivian's love. He peeled grapes for her, carefully removing the seeds. When she felt cold, he draped a suit over her shoulders. When others toasted her, he drank in her place without hesitation. Envious and suggestive glances followed their every move. Estelle, the official Mrs. Lucien, sat silently in the corner like an outsider, never once looking their way. Later, someone suggested truth or dare. After several rounds, the spinner landed on Estelle. When Vivian had lost earlier, Lucius had gently helped her out by drinking for her. Estelle knew she'd get no such kindness, so she chose truth. A wealthy playboy friend of Lucius glanced at Vivian meaningfully before asking Estelle with a smirk, "Sis, is the person you love most here tonight?" All eyes turned to her, including Lucius and Vivian. Estelle sipped her orange juice, then looked up and answered calmly, "No." The room fell into dead silence. Everyone was astonished by her unexpected reply. Who in their circle didn't know Estelle was Lucius' pathetic admirer? After 3 years of catering to his every whim, she was now publicly declaring her true love wasn't present. This was a direct slap in Lucius' face. His expression turned thunderous, shadowed and terrifying. He drained glass after glass of wine, radiating menacing anger. The game grew awkward and tense. Lucius was clearly distracted, making frequent mistakes and losing multiple rounds. His friends, perhaps trying to save his pride or provoke him, jeered for him to show his phone gallery and top chat. As expected, his gallery was filled with photos of Vivian smiling, pensive, even candid shots of her back. His WeChat top chat was, of course, only Vivian. Lucius seemed unaware that these unconscious acts had proclaimed his deep feelings for Vivian to everyone. Beside him, Vivian blushed, glancing at him shyly. "Lucius? I never knew you felt this way." Her unfinished words and bashful gratitude said it all. The group exchanged knowing looks, and no one pressed further. As the party drew to a close, Vivian turned to Lucius with a request, her voice laced with just the right amount of dependence and unease. Lucius, it hasn't felt safe near my apartment lately. The property management searched for days but found no suspicious individuals. I'm scared to stay alone at night, could you come stay with me for a few days?" At her words, his surrounding friends immediately began to catcall, exchanging knowing looks between the two. Only Estelle remained detached, slowly spearing a piece of cantaloupe from the fruit platter with a small fork, as if the entire conversation were none of her concern. Vivian loved to perform. Estelle was merely an observer. To everyone's surprise, Lucius who had always indulged Vivian's everyone hesitated this time. Frowning, heading Fostel wide sigh, he unexpectedly refused. "Vivian, I still have some matters to attend to. Go home first, lock your doors and windows, and I'll send bodyguards to stand guard later." "All right." Before she could respond, he called a driver to escort her away, and firmly grasped Estelle's wrist and led her to his car. The ride home was dead silent, the atmosphere so oppressive it was hard to breathe. Upon entering the villa, Lucius was met with a faint smell of Chinese herbal medicine in the air. Estelle had been drinking herbal tonics to stabilize her pregnancy, taking care to avoid him. He had never noticed before, but now his senses were sharp, instantly picking up the unusual scent. He stopped and eyed her critically. What medicine are you taking? I smell it every day. Estelle's heart skipped a beat. But she maintained her composure. Just some supplements to regulate my body. The doctor said I need to take them for a while. The smell might be strong. Why don't you stay with Vivian these days? That way, you won't have to endure the medicine. And you can protect her better. Right? Lucius froze. In 3 years. While she had always obeyed him and seemed to accept his devotion to Vivian, this was the first time she had actively pushed him toward another woman. Logically, he should have felt relieved. Even liberated. But for some reason, her words left a dull ache in his chest. As if something were blocking his throat. A thought suddenly struck him. Unraveling all his doubts. He stared at her. A knowing smirk tugging at his lips. Are you jealous? Is that why you said those things at the party tonight? Because you're upset I've been ignoring you for Vivian? Realizing this, he inexplicably relaxed, the irritation in his heart dissipating. Taking a step closer. His tone held a faint, unspoken pride. When we married, I made it clear I loved someone else. I can give you the title of Mrs. Lucian and material comforts. But not love. Besides, Vivian was hurt because of you. It's only right that I take care of her. Stop being petty. His voice softened. Almost condescending, reassuring. You've always liked that antique ship model in my study. Right? I refused to give it to you before. But now it's yours. Estelle had intended to explain she wasn't jealous. But at the mention of the ship model, she swallowed her words. That model had been one of Orion's favorite collections. He had excitedly explained its intricate structure to her countless times. After Orion's death, Lucius had taken it. Over the years, she had hinted at wanting it back, but he had always refused. Now, unexpectedly, he offered it freely. So she nodded, letting her lashes fall to hide the complexity in her eyes. Her voice returning to its usual docile tone. I understand. It won't happen again. Satisfied by her submission, Lucius thought. So she still loves me deeply and can't live without me. Just then, let out a low sigh. His phone rang. Vivian, crying that she was still scared alone at home. This time, Lucius didn't hesitate. He turned and strode out of the villa. In the following days, Lucius did not return to the villa. Vivian, however, seemed determined to flaunt her victory. Sending Estelle frequent messages and photos. Sometimes it was Lucius's back as he cooked for her in the kitchen. Sometimes a silhouette of his profile as he patiently watched a midnight movie with her. Sometimes pictures of him bending to tend her garden. Vivian's intention was clear, to sting Estelle. To remind her where Lucius's heart lay, and how deeply he cherished her. On any other day, Estelle would have found it ridiculous and trivial. Not worth a second thought. But as Orion's birthday approached, these photos featuring Lucius's face so similar to Orion's felt like a blunt knife, slowly twisting in her heart. When Orion was alive, he had pestered her every year on this day for her home-made longevity noodles, claiming they were the best in the world. Since his death, no one had ever looked forward to her cooking like that. No one had cherished her so tenderly. She walked into the kitchen, silently kneading dough, rolling it out, and cutting it into thin strands. She boiled a bowl of clear soup noodles with a poached egg, Orion's favorite. Simple but full of the warmth of home. She placed the noodles on the dining table beside a cherished photo of Orion at 18, bright-eyed, grinning as if it were yesterday. She opened Vivian's latest WeChat moments, a photo of Lucius accompanying her at an art exhibition. Gazing at Lucius's profile. So like Orion's. Then at Orion's bright smile in the photo. A tidal wave of grief overwhelmed her. She collapsed onto the table, whispering her longing to the photo, tears soaking her sleeves. She cried until exhaustion claimed her, falling asleep face down on the table. Late that night, Lucius returned to the villa. Weary, he had only come to fetch a document. But in the dining room, he found Estelle asleep at the table. A now cold bowl of noodles before her. And a familiar-looking photo. He paused, then approached. She remembered his birthday. She had made the longevity noodles he had loved as a child, the kind his mother used to make. Because Orion had been their parents' favorite, Lucius's birthdays had always felt like an afterthought. After his brother's death, the day had become a taboo, forgotten by all including himself. Had she been secretly celebrating his birthday like this every year when he was away? A complex, unnameable emotion welled up in him. He bent to examine the photo but accidentally knocked her phone, which led up to reveal a thumbnail from her album. On impulse, he picked up the phone. It still used the default factory fingerprint lock, allowing him to unlock it easily. To his shock, the album held hundreds of photos of him, profile shots from meetings, back views as he watered the garden, focus glances while reading documents, even a few of him asleep. The photos spanned years, with the earliest dating back to 8 years ago, before they even knew each other. The most recent was from just a few months ago. Lucius felt his heart lurch. Shock, touch, even a secret thrill coursed through him. He had no idea this docile, submissive woman had had a secret crush on him for so long, since long before they met. Just then, Estelle woke with a start, seeing Lucius holding her phone. Her face paled, and she scrambled to snatch it back. Noting her panicked reaction, Lucius's last doubts vanished. He pocketed the phone, masking his turmoil with his usual cold tone. "Who asked you to do this? Don't you know I don't celebrate birthdays?" She froze, instantly realizing his misunderstanding. The photos. He must have seen them. Lucius didn't notice her stiffness, his gaze falling on the noodles. "Since you made them, we might as well eat them." He pulled out a chair, sat across from her, and picked up the chopsticks. Explaining now would only complicate things, possibly revealing her true motives. She had no choice but to let the misunderstanding stand. Suppressing the ache in her heart, she said softly, "The noodles might be cold. Let me warm them up." She carried the bowl meant for Orion into the kitchen. With her back to him, tears fell again. Let this be for Orion. The next day was the day she planned to leave. In the morning, sunlight filtered through the curtains as Estelle called Crew, the lawyer she had contacted. "Crew, today is the last day of the divorce schooling off period as per our earlier agreement. Legally, having fulfilled my session, is our marriage dissolved?" Crew's tone was firm. "Yes, having fulfilled my sess. Estelle, per the divorce agreement and relevant laws, if neither party withdraws the application after the cooling off period, the marriage is automatically terminated. As of midnight, you and Mr. Lucien are no longer legally bound. Congratulations. Estelle, you're free." Free. Estelle hung up, the word echoing in her mind. She gently touched her growing belly, finally offering a genuine, relaxed smile for the first time in ages. Yes. From this moment, she was bidding farewell to the past. She and her child could finally start a new life. She would take the child to a place where no one knew them, a beautiful, peaceful town with mild weather to live quietly and raise the baby. She would tell the child how gentle and outstanding their father had been, and together, they would cherish his memory, living well with all his love and hopes. She didn't have much luggage to pack in this so-called home. Over the past 3 years, she had very few belongings that truly belonged to her. The most important was a small box she had always carefully hidden, containing all the relics related to Orion that she had managed to obtain from Lucius over the years. That fountain pen, that cufflink, that nautical model. She carried a simple suitcase and that precious small box, preparing to go downstairs and leave. Unexpectedly, as she reached the staircase landing, she directly encountered Lucius, who had returned after leaving. He seemed to have come back for forgotten documents. Seeing her with a suitcase, he visibly froze, then frowned deeply. "Are you leaving?" he asked, a trace of tension in his tone that he didn't even notice. Estelle remained calm and nodded. "Yes. Going to take a break." A flicker of unease crossed Lucius's heart. He took a step forward and pressed. "Where are you going? For how long? Alone? I'm not busy recently. Should I come with you?" His reaction surprised Estelle. Was he actually offering to accompany her on a trip? This was highly unusual. Lucius seemed to realize he had shown too much concern. He coughed awkwardly, immediately reverting to his cold demeanor, and added, "Consider it repayment for the longevity noodles you cooked for me." Before Estelle could think of a way to politely refuse this sudden offer, his phone rang again. Without looking, she knew it was Vivian. Even from a distance, Estelle could faintly hear her delicate, dependent voice. "Lucius, I need to talk to you in person about something important. Can we meet now? Ordinarily, Lucius would have agreed without hesitation and rushed over immediately. But today, he hesitated briefly before saying into the phone, I'm busy right now. Can we talk later? Vivian on the other end seemed shocked. Lucius had almost never refused her requests. She paused, her voice tinged with hurt and emphasis. But, Lucius, having fulfilled wide sash, what I need to tell you is really important. About her words were cut off by Lucius. Frowning, he finally relented. Fine. I understand. Wait for me. I'll come immediately. Hanging up, Lucius looked at Estelle. Upon hearing his response, Estelle secretly sighed in relief. She lowered her eyes to hide the emotions in them, fearing he might see through her. Interpreting her downcast expression as disappointment, Lucius misunderstood again. The unease he had felt about her leaving was instantly replaced by a sense of superiority. He snorted softly and said, I know you've liked me. Had a crush on me for years. But you must understand that Vivian will always hold the most important place in my heart. I can't ignore her for you. You should recognize your position. Forget about this trip. After I handle Vivian's matter, I'll accompany you another time when I'm free. Estelle knew his misunderstanding was profound, but she couldn't be bothered to explain. Anyway, Headingway, this was the last time. Let him think whatever he wanted. Taking her silence as acquiescence, Lucius felt unexpectedly pleased. He even generously offered, need a ride to the airport? I'll take you. The car glided smoothly along the highway to the airport. Leaning against the window, Estelle watched the scenery blur past, silently bidding her final farewell. This city had held all her youthful love and 3 years of humiliating marriage. Thankfully, she had endured and achieved what she wanted. The city remained bustling and vibrant, yet not a single roof truly belonged to her. She would find a place for herself and Orion, where she could give birth to their child of love. The car stopped at the airport departure hall. Stepping out, Estelle carefully hugged the small box as if it were her only treasure. Seeing this, Lucius couldn't help a smug smile. Like me that much? You even carry my things on trips. Isn't that a hassle? Before she could reply, his phone rang urgently again, Vivian urging him to hurry. Wiping the smile from his face, he impatiently hung up and tossed at Estelle. Have a good trip. Call me when you're back, and I'll pick you up. With that, he slammed the car door, ordered the driver to turn around, and sped toward Vivian's apartment, leaving her and her luggage at the bustling airport entrance. Watching the black Bentley disappear into traffic, Estelle retracted her gaze, took out her phone, and decisively removed the SIM card she had used for 3 years. She snapped it in half and threw it into a nearby trash bin. Then she inserted a pre-prepared international SIM card. After completing this, she took a deep breath, smiled with relief, and hugged the small box tightly as she straightened her back and walked resolutely into the crowded airport hall. This was the end. She would never return. They would never see each other again. From now on, may they each find peace, separated by mountains and seas, never to cross paths again. When Lucius rushed to Vivian's apartment as fast as possible, he pushed open the door to find her in pajamas, a fever patch on her forehead, lazily curled up on the sofa watching a drama. The important matter was merely that she felt slightly feverish and tired and wanted him to keep her company. Looking at her casual appearance, Lucius was overcome by an indescribable irritation. He remembered Estelle's unusually calm gaze at the airport and her determined departing figure. A strong sense of unease overwhelmed him. What's wrong, Lucius? Are you upset that I made a big deal out of nothing? Sensing his mood, Vivian put down her tablet, her eyes reddening with her usual hurt and fragility. But I really don't feel well. Dizzy and scared to be alone at home. I won't trouble you like this again. Seeing her on the verge of tears, Lucius's irritation instantly turned to guilt and protectiveness. He softened his tone. How could I? I'm only worried when you're unwell. Why would I find it troublesome? He approached and touched her forehead. You're still warm. Let me take you to the hospital. No. I hate hospitals. Vivian pouted, acting spoiled. Be good. We'll feel more at ease after a checkup. Lucius coaxed patiently. After seeing the doctor, I'll take you shopping for anything you want. Alright then. Relieved when she agreed, Lucius drove her to the nearest private hospital. They went through registration, waiting, and a series of examinations. While waiting for results, Lucius went to pay the bill. Just then, a doctor in a white coat recognized him, the same chief physician who had treated Estelle's fall. Frowning, the doctor approached with concern and confusion. Lucian? Perfect timing. Your wife. She missed her scheduled prenatal follow-up after discharge. After such a severe fall, the fetus needs close monitoring. As her family member, you should pay more attention and urge her to come in. Prenatal? Fetus? Lucius was struck like lightning. His mind blank. He instinctively repeated, "What did you say?" The doctor looked at him in surprise. "You didn't know? Your wife is pregnant. She nearly miscarried from that fall. It was very dangerous. No matter how you two argue, you can't play with a pregnant woman's life and the baby's. I strongly advise you to bring her in for a recheck as soon as possible. This is no trivial matter." Pregnant? He froze in place, his blood turning to ice. He wanted to ask more, but the doctor was hurriedly called away by a nurse. She was pregnant? Since when? All the mysteries, all the oddities, suddenly made sense. He also remembered that day in the restaurant. The thought that she might have been carrying his child then. Yet he had treated her so horribly, almost causing her to lose the baby. Was overwhelmed by guilt and fear. His fingertips began to tremble uncontrollably. "Lucius, why are you still here? Where's the payment receipt? I've been waiting ages." Vivian approached with the examination report, her tone petulant and impatient. Ignoring her, Lucius frantically pulled out his phone and trembling dialed Estelle's number. "Sorry. The number you dialed does not exist." The icy prompt felt like a sledgehammer. Disconnected? How could it be disconnected? Refusing to believe it, Lucius immediately opened WeChat, found her familiar profile picture, and quickly sent a message. The next second, a bright red exclamation mark and a blinding notice popped up. The message was sent, but the recipient has blocked it. Blocked? She had not only changed her number, but also blocked all his contact information. She hadn't gone on a relaxation trip, she had truly left him entirely. With his child. This realization was like an ice-covered dagger piercing his heart. "Lucius. What's wrong? Where are you going?" Startled by his sudden reaction, Vivian reached out to grab him. "Let go." Lucius violently shook off her hand as if escaping a plague, turning to sprint toward the hospital entrance, leaving a stunned and embarrassed Vivian far behind. He raced out of the hospital like a madman, running multiple red lights, pushing the car to top speed, and speeding back to the villa he had once disdained but which was now his only clue. Rushing up the stairs, he was so hasty and unsteady that he missed a step and stumbled down several stairs. His knee struck the hard edge of a step, sending sharp pain through him. But the pain briefly cleared his chaotic mind. Ignoring the pain, he scrambled up and dashed into the master bedroom, the room that had once been Estelle's. The room was cold and silent, devoid of her usual jasmine incense or the traces of her careful care. Only emptiness and silence lingered in the air. He yanked open the closet door. The entire section that had belonged to her was now empty. Every item of hers had vanished. He rushed to the dressing table, pulling open every drawer, also empty. Her skincare bottles, her simple jewelry boxes, all were gone. She was truly gone. Gone so completely, so decisively, leaving no trace. A trip? What woman takes all her belongings on a trip? She had no intention of coming back at all. Why had she suddenly become so heartless when just a few days ago she'd remembered his birthday? Were all the kindness and affection she'd shown him nothing but an act? Lucius clutched his head in pain, his tall frame hunched and vulnerable. Images of Estelle over the past 3 years flashed before him, her standing in the kitchen cooking for him, silently handing him a glass of warm water when he returned late, bowing her head submissively when he lost his temper. He'd always thought she loved him humbly, never imagining it might be a mask for some hidden purpose. He abruptly pulled out his phone and dialed the number he knew by heart, still refusing to accept the truth. It was still an invalid number. On WeChat, the glaring red exclamation mark remained. She truly blocked every path back to her. Lucius felt his heart sinking into an abyss. He'd seen her leave, carefully clutching that small box filled with his old belongings. If she loved him so much, how could she really have the heart to leave? Something must be wrong. He insisted, clinging to the last shred of hope. She must be angry. Revenge him this way. Waiting for him to come find her. Just then, his phone rang sharply. His heart leaping. He thought it was Estelle changing her mind. Instead, the screen flashed Vivian. His expression darkened. Irritated, he hung up immediately. Lucius, heading so Phil Ryan sigh. What's wrong with you today? You left me alone in the hospital. Vivian called again the moment he hung up. Company matters. Lucius snapped brusquely, hanging up again before she could speak. He tossed the phone aside and collapsed onto the cold floor, drained of all strength. He awoke again to blinding sunlight. Realizing it was already noon the next day, his throat parched. He croaked instinctively, Estelle. Water. Only his own echo answered in the empty room. No one replied. It hit him then, there would be no one else in this house to silently hand him water or wait for him to come home. Estelle was really gone. As the plane's engines roared, the fuselage taxied, accelerated, and finally lifted into the sky. Estelle felt like a seed trapped for too long, finally breaking free of heavy soil to soar into unknown, liberating skies. She completely left Lucius, the suffocating marriage, and all the unbearable past. Stroking her abdomen, her eyes held a new-found resolve and tenderness. Shortly after entering the stratosphere, the plane encountered severe turbulence. As passengers gasped, Estelle instinctively wrapped her arms protectively around her belly. Soon the captain announced it was normal air current and added that due to a temporary heating malfunction, blankets would be distributed. Flight attendants began handing out blankets. But when they reached Estelle's row, the attendant apologized. Sorry, ma'am. We're running low on spares. I'll check the storage compartment, please wait a moment. The cabin was chilly. Estelle shivered, pulling her coat tighter. Just then, Yi let out a low sigh. A clear, gentle male voice came from the seat ahead. If you don't mind, please use mine. A long, clean hand reached over the seat back, offering a neatly folded cashmere blanket. After a moment's hesitation, she accepted. Thank you. You're welcome. The voice smiled. I don't feel the cold easily. Another identical blanket followed. Take this too. Just in case. Surprised by his thoughtfulness, she thanked him again, wrapping herself in the soft, warm layers. Perhaps due to her pregnancy, she soon grew drowsy and fell into a deep sleep. She woke as the plane began its descent, the announcement echoing that they were nearing their destination. Gazing out the window, she saw unfamiliar city outlines and foreign soil. She realized with certainty she had arrived in a brand new world. The plane landed smoothly. At baggage claim, Estelle struggled with her luggage cart, eyeing the heavy boxes on the conveyor belt. As she strained to lift the last box, it slipped from her grasp, tilting dangerously. Strong hands steadied the box, gently placing it on the cart. Thank you, she said, looking up and froze. It was the man from the plane, the one who'd given her the blankets. He smiled at her recognition. What a coincidence. We meet again. Recovering. She thanked him again. Yes, handing fulfilled lied sesh. It is. Thank you for both the plane and just now. Grateful as she was, she instinctively kept her distance in this foreign land. Noticing her reserve, he didn't press, merely nodding politely. My pleasure. Have a smooth journey. With that, he pushed his luggage toward the exit. Watching him go, Estelle exhaled and turned toward the taxi stand, following the route her best friend Amaris had sent. She was headed to an apartment Amaris had arranged. The taxi wound through streets before stopping at a historic European-style apartment building. Unlocking the heavy wooden door with her key, she stepped inside. The interior was clearly renovated and cleaned with carefully furnished, spotless, and bathed in sunlight through floor-to-ceiling windows. On the living room coffee table sat a small bouquet of white jasmine, her favorite flower. This was a gift from Amaris, her only close friend. Tears pricked her eyes as she relaxed for the first time in days, feeling the warmth of this thoughtfully prepared home. Her phone rang. Answering the new device with a local SIM card. She saw Emrys flashing and picked up immediately. Hello. Estelle. My darling. Did you land? Do you like the apartment? I just wrapped up a transnational meeting. I'm exhausted. If I could have gotten away, I'd have met you at the airport myself. Emrys's familiar, boisterous voice poured through the line, chasing away Estelle's last traces of anxiety. Just arrived. The apartment is perfect. Thank you. Emrys. Don't mention it. Oh, those designed rafts you sent me? I showed them to some CEOs at our partner companies. And they were blown away. They're all dying to meet you. The mysterious designer. Especially Julian. CEO of Cloud Architecture Design, he raved about your style. Why wait? I'm hosting a welcome party tonight to introduce you and help you network. I'm on my way to pick you up, no excuses. Estelle laughed, torn between amusement and exasperation. She'd hoped to rest and adjust to the time zone, but she couldn't bring herself to refuse Emrys's enthusiasm. She dragged her luggage into the bedroom, eyeing the unfamiliar but cozy space, and decided to shower, change, and start fresh. Soon the doorbell rang. Emrys burst in, pulling her into a bear hug. Estelle. I've missed you. Hurry. We're late. Laughing, Estelle let herself be pulled out the door. Can't you let me catch my breath first? As they drove, Emrys rattled off plans for the night, promising it would be unforgettable. The car stopped at a rooftop banquet hall in a downtown luxury restaurant. As they entered, a pop sounded, and confetti rained down. Estelle started, instinctively stepping back to protect her abdomen. Seeing Emrys's handiwork, she shot her a playful, reproachful look. The hall was filled with local design elites and partner company executives. A mix of blonde, blue-eyed faces and Asian features. Estelle quickly composed herself, greeting everyone with fluent English and a poised smile. Her quiet, elegant demeanor and subtle professionalism soon won over many in the room. Finally, heading the subway, Emrys led her to a man with a mysterious smile. Drumroll. This is Julian, founder and lead designer of Cloud Architecture Design, the one with impossibly high standards who's obsessed with your work. Estelle looked up and met a pair of familiar eyes. It was him, the man from the plane and airport. Julian clearly recognized her too, surprise flickering in his eyes before softening into a warm smile. Wow! Emrys exclaimed, picking up on the tension. What's this? Do you two already know each other? Is there a romantic story I'm missing? No. Estelle felt her cheeks warm as she hurried to deny it. Then allow me to formally introduce myself, Julian said, extending his hand with a smile. Estelle, she replied, shaking it. Perfect. I'm so glad you're getting along. Emrys chirped, already backing away. Oh. I see Director Lee from our partner company over there got to say hi. You two chat. After saying this, she winked at Estelle and quickly slipped away with her wine glass. Estelle and Julian were left standing there, the atmosphere slightly awkward. Fortunately, someone nearby approached Julian to discuss project details, and Estelle took the opportunity to politely excuse herself. She wandered around the banquet hall, exchanging brief greetings with several industry professionals. But the fatigue from pregnancy and jet lag gradually overwhelmed her. Feeling tired, she quietly pushed open the glass door to the terrace and stepped outside. The cool night breeze dispelled the indoor hustle and warmth, refreshing her. The terrace offered a wide view, allowing her to take in the city's bright night scenery. Leaning against the railing and gazing into the distance, she heard footsteps behind her. Turning around, she saw Julian. He held two drinks in his hand and handed one to her. I noticed you didn't eat or drink much earlier. I brought you a soda. It was a glass of iced soda with lemon slices. The aroma of lemon peel unexpectedly fresh. Estelle was surprised by his thoughtfulness and thanked him as she took it. Thank you, Julian. You're welcome. Just call me Julian. He leaned against the nearby railing, his gaze fixed on the distant night view. The night view here is beautiful, isn't it? Yes, polite, it is. The two chatted casually. Before they knew it, the conversation turned to design. Julian was deeply impressed by the anonymous work she had submitted earlier. He not only praised them highly but also offered professional and unique insights, even pointing out details for improvement that she hadn't noticed herself. Estelle listened intently, admiration unconsciously shining in her eyes. She realized that this man was not only good-looking but also top-notch in professional ability. Conversing with him gave her a sense of meeting a worthy opponent and regretting not having met sooner. The atmosphere between them gradually shifted from initial formality to warmth and familiarity. As the party drew to a close, Emerus suggested taking a group photo as a memento. Without asking for consent, she pushed Estelle and Julien to the center of the crowd. The moment the camera shutter clicked, Julien, men in language, standing beside Estelle, slightly turned his head to look at her, a faint and sincere smile curving his lips. Emerus was extremely satisfied with the photo and excitedly posted it on her social media that night with the caption, "Welcome my goddess star to our city. A powerful partnership, bright future ahead." Image, in the photo, Estelle stood in the middle with a serene and gentle smile, while Julien beside her leaned slightly toward her, his gaze seemingly falling on her inadvertently, his face wearing a rare soft smile. Standing together, they made an unexpectedly well-matched couple. Soon, let out a low sigh. A flood of likes and comments poured in, asking who this goddess star was, with many teasing that she and President Julien made a handsome couple. In a late-night moment far across the ocean in their home country, Lucius shut himself in the empty villa, gulping down strong alcohol one glass after another. Since learning of Estelle's pregnancy and her complete disappearance, he had been consumed by anxiety, regret, and panic. He had used all available connections to frantically search for her, only to find her flight information showing she had left for a European city he had never heard her mention. Her new phone number had vanished without a trace, and all her social accounts were deleted. She was like a ghost who had evaporated from the world. Alcohol and insomnia had left him gaunt, losing significant weight in just a few days. He couldn't accept that she had left like this, let alone that she had been using him all along. The only person she loved was Orion, who looked exactly like him. How dare she? How could she? Jealousy, cutting to shy, anger, unwillingness, and a panic he refused to admit, along with longing, gnawed at his heart like venomous snakes. Irritably picking up his phone, he mindlessly scrolled through his feed, hoping to find some clue related to her. Just then, let out a low sigh. He saw Emerus's post. He knew Emerus was Estelle's only close friend. His gaze was instantly fixed on the group photo. In the photo, Estelle stood among strangers, wearing a smile he had never seen before. And the man beside her, the one smiling so gently, they stood so close, their posture so natural. It was blinding. What was their relationship? How many days had she been gone? Had she already found someone new? So was the reason she left him so decisively and blocked all his contacts because of this man? What about the child in her womb? Was it even his? Or was all this just a ploy to toy with him? Was she pretending to have a new lover, waiting for him to go crazy, to seek her out, to beg her to come back? Countless chaotic thoughts and suspicions churned in his mind, nearly tearing his sanity apart. He zoomed in on the photo again and again, staring fixedly at Estelle's smiling face and then at the man beside her. His chest heaved violently, his eyes filled with bloodshot fury and manic possessiveness. Just as he neared the edge of collapse, his personal phone rang. It was his assistant. Taking a deep breath, he suppressed his roiling emotions and answered. His voice hoarse, "Speak." The assistant's voice was hesitant and tense. "President Lucian. Crew just contacted us," she said. "The divorce agreement between you and your wife has passed the cooling-off period and is now officially valid." She asked about the division of marital property. Divorce? Valid? His heart felt as if it had been torn open, aching profoundly. Lucius jerked to his feet, blood rushing in his veins. "What did you say? What divorce agreement? When did she sign this with me? Why didn't I know? Crew said you previously authorized her to sign on your behalf. There's a phone recording and your authorization documents." The assistant's voice trailed off. Phone recording? Authorization? Lucius's mind raced as he suddenly remembered that Estelle had indeed called him months ago, saying there was a document he needed to process. At the time, He had been busy comforting Vivian and had impatiently told her to handle it herself, casually muttering something like, "You decide, trust you." So that's when it happened. She had been planning to leave him since then. This realization was more suffocating and devastating than seeing her cozy photo with another man. He had always thought he was in control, only to realize he had been manipulated by her from start to finish. "President Lucian? Are you still there?" He couldn't hear the voice on the other end. He abruptly hung up and smashed the phone against the wall. He let out an uncontrollable roar. Like a wounded beast, crashing against the walls in the empty villa. Just then, the doorbell rang. Assuming it was his assistant or an ill-timed friend, he snapped angrily, "Go away." But Vivian's soft voice came from outside. "Lucius. It's me. Are you okay? I called but no one answered, so I got worried and came to check on you." At the sound of Vivian's voice, a flicker of disgust crossed Lucius's eyes. If not for her, would he have ignored Estelle time and again? If not for her, would Estelle have? He flung open the door, staring at the familiar yet strange face outside. "Lucius. Are you all right? I heard you were upset and got worried." She spoke cautiously, trying to move closer and link her arm with his as usual. But Lucius stepped back sharply, avoiding her touch. He stared at her, his voice low and husky, charged with danger. "You once told me you saw Estelle with another man?" Vivian froze, not expecting this sudden question. She had indeed lied before to sound discord. Seeing his devastated state over Estelle's departure, she decided to seize the opportunity to confirm Estelle's fickleness and completely crush Lucius's lingering feelings. "Why, yes." Vivian pretended to hesitate and look embarrassed. "In fact, I saw them more than once. A few times at cafes. Once at a gallery. She was with a refined-looking man. Acting quite intimately. I didn't want to tell you, fearing you'd misunderstand since she's your wife. I never thought she'd leave with someone else like this." As she spoke, she watched Lucius's expression. Sure enough, her words were like fuel to the fire of his jealousy and anger. "Another man," Lucius repeated in a low voice, his knuckles cracking from how tightly he was clenching his fists. The blinding photo from his feed instantly reappeared in his mind. The man's gentle smile. Estelle's bright profile. So it was true. She had left him for another man. An overwhelming sense of humiliation and betrayal flooded him. All his tolerance toward her now seemed ridiculous. His possessiveness nearly drove him mad. Yet, amid the chaos, a flicker of doubt arose. Vivian's timing was too coincidental, her story too smooth as if rehearsed. He decided that once he sorted out the current mess, he would thoroughly investigate Vivian's recent actions and past claims. Lucius spun around, turning his back on her, and walked to the bar to pour himself a full glass of whiskey. Downing it in one gulp, the burning liquor scorched his throat but did nothing to quench his anger. Vivian hurried after him, gently consoling, "Lucius, don't do this. It's not worth hurting yourself over such an unworthy woman. She didn't know how to cherish you, her loss. You still have me. I'll always be here for you." She reached out to hug him from behind, pressing her face to his back, using her usual tactics of tenderness and dependence to soothe him. "Get away." Lucius recoiled as if stung, violently shaking off her hand with such force that she staggered. Vivian stared at him in disbelief. This was the first time he had treated her so roughly. "Lucius." Tears instantly filled her eyes as she looked at him wronged. "I told you to get out." Lucius spun around, his bloodshot eyes fixing on her with a loathing and coldness Vivian had never seen before. "You..." Vivian was both terrified and completely enraged. "Lucius. You're treating me like this for that woman who betrayed you? Are you insane?" I said, "Leave. Do you not understand?" "I'm not leaving." Vivian stood her ground stubbornly, tears streaming. "Not until you tell me what's wrong with you." Lucius didn't bother wasting more words. He grabbed his coat from the sofa and marched straight for the door. "Where are you going?" Vivian shrieked after him. The only response was a heavy bang as the door slammed shut. Vivian was left alone in the enormous villa. She stood stunned for a few seconds before erupting into hysterical screams and sobs, wildly sweeping wine glasses and ornaments off the table to vent her humiliation and resentment at being abandoned. Meanwhile, Lucius wandered the empty late-night streets like a lost soul. The cold wind stung his face, but it cleared his chaotic mind slightly. With each step, memories of Estelle flooded back: her forbearance, her docility. He also recalled how he had treated her. His indifference, his neglect, the hurt he'd caused her for Vivian, his self-righteous control and condescension. Lucius had always believed he loved Vivian deeply, remaining faithful to her and rejecting all other women. But now, with Estelle gone, he realized his feelings for Vivian might be nothing more than the obsession of a teenager who couldn't have what he wanted. And Estelle? The woman who was his wife in name. The one he'd thought loved him desperately. The one he now realized he'd grown accustomed to and even missed. Did she truly not love him? The thought twisted his heart in agony. A wave of nausea surged through his stomach, the alcohol finally taking effect and making him dizzy. He braced himself against a roadside wall, barely staying upright. Through his haze, he saw a familiar figure ahead, walking slowly. The way she moved, it looked so much like Estelle. Estelle. His heart jolted. He called out hoarsely, staggering after her. He stumbled after the figure, shouting Estelle over and over. But no matter how fast he ran, the figure stayed just out of reach, vanishing and repairing in the dim night and flickering lights, as if forever unattainable. Lucius chased the figure into a quiet alley. At the end, it finally stopped and turned and revealed a completely strange face. The terrified passerby stared back at him, seeing only a madman chasing someone through the night. Hope shattered. Lucius panted, leaning against the cold wall as overwhelming loss flooded him. His eyes reddened uncontrollably, and scalding tears slid down his cheeks. It had all been a hallucination. She was really gone. So far and so thoroughly that she wouldn't even leave him a phantom. He could no longer hold on. Sliding down the wall to sit on the ground, burying his head in his knees like a child abandoned by the world, emitting muffled, painful sobs. When he woke again, Lucius found himself in a hospital bed with an IV in his arm. He stared blankly, as if nothing around him mattered, until his brothers finally spoke. Lucien, head in wide sigh. Don't be too upset. We found out where sister-in-law went, one brother said cautiously. Lucius's eyes lit up. He sat up abruptly, grabbing the man's arm urgently. Where is she? Tell me now. She let out a low sigh. She did go abroad. To France. And we found out she completed divorce proceedings before leaving. With your authorization. Also, heading my obsession. That Vivian. His brother hesitated, handing him a newly uncovered file. We checked her recent years and found many inconsistencies in what she told you. Even add. Lucius snatched the tablet and scanned it quickly. It detailed Vivian's real life abroad and evidence of her deliberately manipulating him, and Estelle, including the fabricated claim that Estelle was with another man. The truth unfolded like layers of an onion. Cruel and merciless. He'd been deceived, played by both women. Estelle had used him to have a child and then abandoned him without a second thought. Vivian had treated him like a fool, exploiting his guilt and obsession, enjoying his devotion while stabbing him in the back. Spat, a mouthful of blood sprayed from Lucius's mouth, staining the white bed sheet. But he barely felt the physical pain. He stared at Vivian's innocent face on the tablet, his eyes blazing with maniacal fury. He ripped out the IV and stumbled out of the ward. He had only one thought now. Find Vivian. Make her pay. Lucius arrived at Vivian's apartment building in a rage, not even bothering to ring the bell before using a spare key to enter. Vivian hadn't expected him to return, let alone in this state, wearing pajamas and a face mask. She froze at the sight of him, then smiled triumphantly, thinking he'd come to apologize. Lucius. You're back? I knew you couldn't bear to. Before she could finish, a thunderous slap struck her face. Slap. The crisp sound echoed in the silent living room. Vivian staggered and fell to the carpet. Her cheek burned, swelling instantly, with blood trickling from the corner of her mouth. Her face mask hung askew, making her look disheveled and pathetic. She covered her face, eyes wide with disbelief and fear as she looked up at Lucius. Voice trembling. Lucius. Why did you hit me? What did I do wrong? Seeing her still pretending, Lucius felt a surge of fury. He tossed the tablet filled with her sordid past and lies at her feet. Read it. See what kind of good deeds you've done. The edge of the tablet struck her forehead, causing a dull ache. Vivian ignored the pain, trembling as she picked up the device. When she saw the words and photos on the screen, the color drained from her face. Her pupils dilated, and her body shook uncontrollably. These were the secrets she'd tried so hard to hide, the lies she'd woven now exposed. No. It's not true. Lucius. Listen to me explain. She dropped the tablet and crawled to his feet, trying to grab his pant leg. These are all fakes. Someone framed me. I didn't mean to lie. I really love you. I did it because I was scared of losing you. Her words tumbled out incoherently, tears streaming as she tried to plead for his last bit of mercy. Love me? Lucius laughed coldly, the sound dripping with mockery and ice. You dare use the word love? Vivian. You make me sick. He kicked her away without hesitation. At the word sick, and the humiliating kick, the last flicker of hope died in Vivian's eyes. All her fear and resentment exploded. Lying on the floor, she stared at the man who had shattered her hopes and began to laugh maniacally, the sound piercing and despairing. Since the truth was out and he despised her, why pretend anymore? She raised her head, eyes blazing with hatred. Yes. I lied. I used you. So what? You're the fool. You rejected Estelle and treated me like a treasure. Now she's gone and dumped you. So you come take it out on me? Lucius. You deserve this. Shut up. Vivian's words stabbed at Lucius's deepest wounds. He snapped, his last thread of sanity breaking. He lunged forward, grabbing her hair and dragging her up, then squeezing her neck tightly. The overwhelming suffocation made Vivian struggle wildly, her nails scratching bloody marks into his arms. But Lucius felt no pain. His bloodshot eyes held only murderous rage. His grip tightening. Vivian's face turned red, then purple, her eyes bulging with terror and desperation. Just as she thought she would die, several of Lucius's friends burst in, horrified by the scene. They rushed to pull him off her. Lucian! Calm down. Calm down. She's not worth it. Gasping for air, Vivian collapsed to the floor, coughing violently as tears and snot ran down her face. Lucius thrashed in his friend's grip like a furious lion, still trying to attack Vivian. Let me go. I'll kill her. Kill this bitch. His friends winced from his blows but held on, pleading desperately. Lucian. Don't be stupid. Murder is illegal. Think about your parents. The most important thing is to get sister-in-law back. She'll never forgive you if she sees you like this. At the mention of Estelle, Lucius froze, the madness in his eyes fading into deeper pain and despair. He took one last look at the disheveled Vivian, his voice icy and devoid of emotion. Take care of her. Use any method. I don't want to see her in the country again. Hearing that he intended to deal with her, Vivian was terrified out of her wits. Ignoring the searing pain in her body, she crawled on all fours to Lucius's feet, hugging his legs and weeping for mercy. Lucius. Please. Forgive me this once. I was wrong. I'm truly sorry. If you let me go, I promise to disappear far away, never to appear before you again. I'll never disturb you and Estelle. At the mention of Estelle's name, the last trace of hesitation vanished from Lucius's eyes. He raised his foot and kicked her away harshly. Several subordinates dared not delay further. They immediately hauled the still crying and pleading Vivian out of the apartment by force. After the welcome party, Estelle's life seemed to get back on track. She quickly made a name for herself in the local design circle, winning unanimous praise from clients and partners. She found a long-lost sense of accomplishment in her work, as if the haze and pain of the past were gradually fading away in this full and busy new life. But Amaris, noticing her growing pregnancy and her insistence on overseeing projects personally, felt distressed and ordered her to take a week off to rest properly. On the first day of her vacation, she slept in until natural wake signals for the first time in ages. Sunlight poured warmly into the room, creating a peaceful and beautiful atmosphere. Stretching lazily, she reached for her phone by the bedside as usual, only to find it had auto-shut down due to forgotten charging the night before. She plugged in the charger. As soon as the phone turned on, Before the screen fully lit up, a rapid ringtone blared out abruptly. The screen displayed a strange international long-distance number. After a moment's hesitation, assuming it might be a partner, she answered, "Hello?" The other end was silent for a few seconds. Then a hoarse and weary, yet horribly familiar voice came through. "Estelle. It's me." It was Lucius. Estelle's blood seemed to freeze instantly. How did he get this number? Why was he calling? Clutching the phone with icy fingertips, she struggled to keep her voice calm and distant. Lucian. I think there's nothing left to say between us. Our marriage is over." The breath on the other end hitched sharply, followed by Lucius's urgent, almost pleading tone, "About Vivian. I've dealt with her. I promise she'll never appear before you again. Never make you suffer. Estelle. I know you're still angry with me. But I've come to find you. And I really know I was wrong. Didn't you say you wanted to travel? I'll go with you. Anywhere. Just please." "Enough," Estelle interrupted coldly. "The divorce agreement is already effective, recognized by the court. Whatever happens between you and Vivian is none of my concern. Please don't call me again." Her indifference and resolve seemed to completely ignite the man on the other end. Lucius's voice rose sharply, laced with near unhinged paranoia and anger. "None of your concern? Estelle. You loved me so much. You secretly took so many photos of me. You remembered my birthday. You're carrying my child. How can you say it's none of your business? Stop pretending. I know you're just angry with me. Now that I've found you, come back to me immediately." Listening to his delusional words filled with arrogance and control, Estelle felt nothing but irony and exhaustion. She realized that without shattering his illusions completely, he would never give up. Taking a deep breath, she spoke with ruthless calm. Word by word, "Lucius. You're mistaken. The person I love has never been you. I approached you, married you, and endured everything with you and Vivian for one purpose, only to have a child who looks like him. The photos I took were because your face resembled his. The bowl of noodles I made for you was his favorite. As for you, your private life, your feelings, Vivian, I never cared. Marrying you was always part of my plan. A plan to get close to Serafina. Perhaps I once tried to find Orion's shadow in you. But it proved you're fundamentally different. Especially when you hurt me again and again for Vivian. Even destroying the only memory Orion left me. I finally saw clearly. Our marriage was just a transaction for mutual benefit. You got a wife to satisfy your family and dispel loneliness. Now I have the child I wanted. We're even. I didn't touch a single cent of the property. It's all yours. From now on, please let go of me and yourself. Don't contact me again." Each word of Estelle's was like a sharp ice pick, piercing Lucius's heart and shattering his last delusions and dignity. The other end fell into deathly silence. He could hear his own blood roaring in his ears. His heart clamped by an invisible hand, making it hard to breathe. In that moment, he hated the face that so closely resembled Orion's. Overwhelming shame, anger, and an indescribable heartbreak engulfed him. No. Impossible. He clung to the last shred of hope, voice trembling with a near humble plea. "Estelle. I don't believe it. Did you never have even the slightest feelings for me? Not even a little? If you think I'm not enough like him, I can change. I can learn. I can become him. Just stay by my side." His voice choked with unprecedented vulnerability and pleading. The once arrogant Lucius was now humbled to the dust. But Estelle on the other end was unyielding. She had endured the pain of losing her true love and 3 years of marriage like purgatory. She knew too well that Lucius could never be Orion. And she had no strength left to deal with his obsession. "No," she said clearly, cutting off his last hope, "it's over between us. If you harass me again, I'll call the police. Lucius, you're not him. Never will be." With that, she hung up without hesitation and blocked the number completely. Sometimes, the cruelest truth is the most complete liberation. For both her and him. After hanging up, Estelle leaned against the headboard, closing her eyes to take a deep breath and slowly let it out. It was over. This time, truly and completely over. She touched her abdomen, feeling the flutter of life inside, and finally smiled with relief. In the future, she would live well with her baby. On Lucius's end, he stared blankly at the dial tone, as if the world had gone silent. Her words, "You're not him. Never will be," echoed like a curse in his mind, dragging him into an abyss of eternal damnation. He smashed the phone to the ground, the screen shattering instantly. Like a madman, he began destroying everything in the room. The sound of breaking glass and crashing objects filled the air. He raged and roared until he collapsed exhausted onto the debris-strewn floor, tears mixing with despair. He had lost, completely and utterly. Lost her. Lost the child. Lost his ridiculous pride. Even the meaning of living. In the middle of the night, Estelle woke from a nightmare. Cold sweat drenching her forehead and her heart pounding wildly. The sky outside was still pitch black. Checking the time. It was just past 4 a.m. But she couldn't fall back asleep. Overwhelming fear and unease made her restless. She finally dozed off slightly at dawn. When she woke up, she felt dizzy, lethargic, and had a dull, heavy and distending pain in her abdomen. Not daring to take risks, she decided to go to the hospital immediately. Reaching for her phone to call Amaris. She remembered Amaris had a crucial international project briefing that morning and had specifically asked not to be disturbed. After a moment's hesitation, Estelle decided to go to the hospital alone. She quickly washed up, changed clothes, grabbed her ID and wallet, and went downstairs. However, perhaps due to the rainy weather, she stood by the roadside for over 20 minutes. But the ride-hailing app showed no available vehicles nearby. As time ticked by, her anxiety grew. Just as she was considering walking to the main road to try her luck, a black Bentley pulled up slowly in front of her. The window rolled down, revealing Julian's gentle and handsome face. "Estelle? What a coincidence. Where are you going?" "President Julian?" Estelle was surprised. "I'm going to the hospital for a checkup. But I can't get a taxi." "To the hospital?" Julian immediately noticed her pale complexion and frowned. "Are you unwell? Get in. I'll take you." Without further questions, he leaned over to open the passenger door for her. Estelle hesitated. She didn't want to trouble him, but there seemed no better option. Besides, for some reason, his presence miraculously calmed her anxiety. "Thank you. I'm sorry to bother you," she said finally, getting into the car. Julian closed the door, returned to the driver's seat, and started the car, asking, "Which hospital? How do you feel? Is it serious?" His tone was clearly concerned. "The same one I booked last time. It's nothing major, just tired. Plus the bad weather makes me feel uncomfortable. I want to get checked for peace of mind," Estelle explained softly. "Right. You need to be extra careful during pregnancy." Julian nodded. He didn't press further, only slowing down and driving exceptionally smoothly. At the hospital, Julian showed his considerate side again. He insisted on accompanying her through registration, waiting in line, and examinations. He even remembered the doctor she had seen before and took her directly to the consulting room. The doctor, recognizing them, smiled and teased. "Julian is so attentive to his wife, always accompanying her for prenatal checkups. What a model husband." Julian's ears read and slightly at the remark, but he didn't refute it, only smiling politely. Estelle opened her mouth to explain, but only sighed and smiled warily. After a series of tests, the doctor assured them the baby was perfectly healthy, noting only that the mother might be tired and anxious and needed more rest and a happy mood. Hearing the baby was fine, both breathed a sigh of relief. Stepping out of the clinic, Julian carefully tucked away the several sheets of post-care instructions the doctor had given him. Then turned to Estelle with a serious gaze. "The doctor said you need to relax. Since I have no plans this afternoon, would you like me to take you somewhere?" "Where to?" Estelle asked, curious. "A very quiet place with beautiful scenery. You can have afternoon tea or paint," Julian said with a smile. "I know you like painting." Julian drove Estelle to a private estate on the outskirts of the city. The estate featured a stunning glass conservatory filled with exotic flowers and plants, adjacent to a spacious terrace CAF with a sweeping view. Afternoon sunlight filtered through the glass dome, warm and cozy. The air was scented with faint floral notes and the aroma of coffee. A friend of mine owns this place. It's not open to the public, so it's very peaceful, Julian explained. I thought you might enjoy the environment here. Estelle indeed loved it. Far from the hustle and bustle, the serene beauty helped her tightly wound mouths relax significantly. They sat by the window and ordered drinks and pastries. Julian seemed to know she had a good appetite recently and specifically ordered several delicate desserts. Try this at their signature chestnut cake. It's delicious, he said, pushing a tempting-looking slice toward her. Estelle thanked him, took a bite with her fork, and her eyes lit up slightly. It really is good. Watching her satisfied expression, Julian's eyes warmed with a smile. They chatted casually, from design philosophies to everyday fun stories. The atmosphere relaxed and pleasant. Estelle discovered that Julian wasn't the iceberg Damaris had described. He was actually very talkative, knowledgeable, and had a well-timed sense of humor. Being with him felt comfortable. After tea, Julian suggested, "There's a studio next to the conservatory with all the painting supplies. Want to take a look?" Estelle agreed gladly. Painting had always been her hobby and a way to relieve emotions. The studio was bright and spacious, equipped with easels, canvases, and paints. Julian didn't disturb her, instead sitting quietly by the side and flipping to an art book. Estelle chose a spot by the window, set up her easel, and began mixing colors. She didn't deliberately plan what to paint, simply freely applying the flowers, plants, and light before her onto the canvas. Immersed in the world of color, she forgot time and troubles, as if all anxiety and unease were shut out. After an unknown length of time, she set down her brush and looked at the vibrant colors on the canvas. Letting out a long sigh, she felt a peace and contentment she hadn't experienced in ages. She turned to find Julian had put down the artwork at some point and was watching her quietly, his gaze focused and gentle. Their eyes met, and a subtle tension seemed to flow in the air. Estelle's heart skipped a beat, and she awkwardly looked away. "Finished?" Julian broke the silence first, his voice gentle. "Yeah. Just painting randomly." "It's wonderful," he said, standing up and walking to her side to admire the canvas. "It's full of life." His gaze turned to her, curious and earnest. "Estelle, are you doing okay?" The sudden use of her nickname startled her slightly. Julian carefully chose his words. "I mean, starting over here alone with a child must be tough, right? Please don't hesitate to ask if you need help with anything." His concern was sincere and non-invasive, warming Estelle's heart. She shook her head and smiled. "Thank you, Julian. I'm doing fine now. With Amaris and you as a new friend, I feel very reassured." For the first time, she actively called him friend. Julian's eyes flickered with a trace of unspoken joy at her words. He smiled but didn't press the topic, simply saying, "It's getting late. Let me drive you home." On the way back, the atmosphere between them was even more harmonious than before. When the car stopped at her apartment building, Estelle unfastened and her seat